Hello and welcome to Coconut Chats, everyone. Today you've got me, Parita, and I'm joined with two lovely guests. One is Parita, the choreographer and owner of Shivam Dance Academy, New Zealand. Welcome, Parita. How are you?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
And my other guest is Swara, who is the owner and choreographer of Bolly Heels. Welcome, Swara. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for having me.
So Parita Bose is a senior media specialist at New Zealand Media Enterprise by profession, but by passion, she's an accomplished kathak, folk and Bollywood dancer and dance teacher. For the past 13 years, she's run SDANZ, which is Wellington's premier kathak, folk and Bollywood dance school. It's a not-for-profit organisation that brings together the wider Wellington Indian diaspora, uniting them through a love of music and dance. Working with youth and helping them with personality development and overall mental health is one of the major roles that the dance school focuses on, along with teaching different styles. Parita's own dance journey began in her original home country of Kenya, where she danced and taught at a dance school run by her mum. After immigrating to Aotearoa, New Zealand, with her partner Rony, Parita opened her first dance school in Wanganui before moving to Palmerston North and then eventually here to Wellington, where she resides with her husband and her young son, Kiaan. So I'll start my questions with you, Parita, before we move on to Swara. Why did you start SDANZ? What was your inspiration for it?
As you mentioned, I moved to Wanganui, and Wanganui has a very small Indian population, and they hardly used to do any festivals and stuff. So I just saw that as an opportunity to just basically connect with the Indian diaspora and just offer my services for free, and just a great way to meet people. And also, it was an opportunity for me to carry on my mother's um, profession and passion. So yeah, that was one of the main reasons why I thought that why not? I had some time outside my full-time work just to give it back to the community and teach kids like all different dance styles basically.
Mm. So I know you personally, and I know that you're a very busy person. Like, I don't know how you do everything, but how do you manage everything with a full-time job, a very full-time dance instructing schedule, and also a young family?
I would put it down to having a really good support system around me. Obviously, it starts with having a really supportive husband, and also having a really good group of senior students who have trained for over 10 years now. And, they have become my support system, taking over from me for um, rehearsals and stuff like that. So I've had a really good network around me, really good support system, and support from the community as well. I would say that, for example, other community organizations, like they'll always support us, like whether it's financially or whether it's just giving us some space for dance, or so it's it is like a family, it is like a big community network that comes together, and just um we all help each other in different ways, and that's the only way that we can do it, because we've got no family around here. So that's the only way that we can rely on each other. And that's how SDANZ has always been. That's been the motto for SDANZ, is that we work as a family and we work really hard, play really hard, basically.
Yep, yep. That's really good. So what goes into organizing a production, which I've been to most of your productions in the last few years, and also into organizing your classes and the schedules?
Not much. It just happens naturally, frankly speaking, because I'm kind of like a one-man band when it comes to production, choreos, design. Choreos, we do have a bit of our senior team helping out now. But in terms of the storyline and stuff, there is quite a bit of like one-man band. So it just kind of goes with the flow. Everybody does help out where they can. It's full on. It takes a lot of pressure, the family side of the life as well. But it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I assume that it reflects in what we do. So we, yeah, again, with the support of everybody, we just try and come up with different themes, different styles each time, and expose. The main concept is obviously to educate the students as well on the different living away from home, educating them on different styles of dance, different, the cultures that India offers us, like the Maharashtrian culture, the Gujarati culture and stuff. So through all these dance styles, we expose them through to a lot more just other than dance forms. So yeah, we've been quite privileged that we've had a big group of people from all sorts of all parts of India basically, and also we've got a lot of Kiwi representation here as well. So who have been with us and who have supported us for
Yeah, that part about like bringing Indian culture to New Zealand, and also, New Zealand's so far from India that if we don't make an effort, it's very easy to lose our culture, right? And I also grew up doing Bharatanatyam, not with you because you weren't around when I was a kid, but I went to another dance instructor in Wellington, and I used to learn Bharatanatyam for that exact same reason, because I was born in New Zealand and my mum's side of the family is also born in New Zealand. But I wanted to learn Bharatanatyam because I wanted to learn a bit more about the historical side of India. Like, I already knew how to speak Gujarati and all of that stuff, but I didn't know anything about India's, like, about the religious stuff, because I never had any need to. And I learned all of that through Bharatanatyam, not through family or anyone telling me. And also, like with Bollywood, even though Bollywood's not, classical, you learn so much about Indian culture through it. And also you make so many friends that are interested in the same thing. So when you mentioned that, I was like, that's so true. Like, that's exactly why I learned dance when I was a kid and a teenager, for, to feel like I kind of belonged with people as well. Yeah.
exactly right, because I do have a lot of, especially teens who do suffer, New Zealand now has become quite, acceptable with all these different cultures, all the different migrants that we have here. But then there was a time when I used to have students in my earlier days where, it was really hard for them to like connect to um, the Kiwis because they were like, oh, being a different colored person. So it wasn't really acceptable. And being connected to other colored people, for them, that was their little safe space by coming to dance. So I think with that as well, it has given, just by coming to classes and just being exposed and understanding your culture, appreciating what your roots are, I guess that has also given them that confidence in like their who they are, who they represent, and just being more like being able to like stand for themselves basically.
Yep, that's very true. And then also the other part you mentioned about a lot of Kiwis coming to Bollywood dance class. Like, I'm friends with one of them and she loves it. Like, every time I talk to her about it, she talks about how much she loves SDANZ. And like, you can just see, like, they don't care that, oh, this is an Indian type of dance, because they actually love learning it, and it's something different and interesting for them as well, which is really awesome. So the next part that I wanted to touch on, and also our next guest, Swara. So Parita, you're part of a team, I assume, because she's on a tour, but you're part of a team of people that are bringing her to New Zealand for 2 workshops on February the 27th and 28th. So I want to know, how are you able to bring like Swara to Wellington, and does that take a lot of organising and coordinating with other people?
Well, frankly speaking, I'd definitely give it a big shout out to some of the Auckland-based dance studios who have been, actively bringing all these amazing talent to New Zealand. And Wellington being really small in terms of, the kind of talent that we've got here, and then also in terms of the Indian diaspora, I think what I found really, and obviously all hats off to Swara as well, because she was like, so like, yeah, let's do this, I'd love to come and explore Wellington as well. So she was coming to Auckland, and I just reached out to her as like, hey, we always like Wellington always misses out because there hasn't been much. So I was like, hey, would it be okay if we could do something here? And she was like super amazing at, like super responsive and like just like, yep, let's do this. And it's been amazing coordinating everything with you, Sora. So I'm super excited that Wellington gets to host such a talented person, and we're super excited to actually learn something new from Swara, and yeah, and also just explore all the other dance styles that she has got to offer us.
Yeah, so that's a nice segue to introducing our next guest, Swarali, who is the driving force behind Bolly Heels, which is New York City's premier dance wellness brand. With 20 plus years in the industry, she's a choreographer, dance educator, and movement therapist. Known for her captivating performances on Dance India Dance, the IFA Awards, Mystic India, and Times Square Diwali, Swarali has a long history of working with celebrities globally. Her true passion lies in empowering dance enthusiasts with techniques and skills that they need to channel their most confident selves on the dance floor and in life. Currently, she's exploring the science of femme empowerment through her goddess synergy movement. Welcome, Swarali.
Thank you.
So I know that you started learning dance to fulfill your mother's dream of becoming a famous dancer. I can imagine this put pressure on you as well to constantly try to make your mom happy with what you were doing. But what forms of dance did you learn, and which one was your favorite?
Before I start answering, I just want to mention something about Parita. Parita, thank you so much, firstly, for inviting me to be a part of your team and to be a part of your vision. I really can identify with the cause of creating a space to empower people through dance, especially youth, because that is when so much of our identity gets formed, and it's such a confusing space for so many people. And knowing and believing that there's other people, especially other women of color, doing that out there in the world is very exciting and inspiring for me to know. And I can see, I love connecting with women like this. So thank you so much for inviting me, firstly, to be a part of your vision. And coming to you, Harita, yes, it did put a lot of pressure on me. It still does. My mother is a very difficult woman to please, but I think what she has instilled in me is that whatever I pick up, I need to do it really, really well. That I need to be the best at what I do. And if I'm not going to do that, then it might as well don't even attempt it. And that has made me the ambitious woman I am today. I started dancing at the age of 6. And I believe it with my entire heart that if my mom could put me in a dance class before that, she probably would. But 6 was the minimum age. So that is where I started. And I started with classical Indian dance, like both you lovely women here, started with Bharatanatyam, Kathak, and folk dance. Around that time, this is 90s India we were talking about, dancing was not a career option. It was looked at as a hobby, and especially classical dance was something that people were introduced to as a form of discipline, to bring that into your life. So that's how I started. However, over a period of time, I transitioned to Western styles of dance. My gymnastics teacher was a jazz dancer, and she would call it Western dance classes because, again, there wasn't so much knowledge of like jazz and contemporary, and she would fuel all of those styles under Western dance. And over a period of time, because now I have been dancing for 25 plus years, I have trained myself in a variety of dance forms: jazz, contemporary, belly dance, heels, various styles of Latin dance forms. And every 2 years or so, I challenge myself with a different style of dance because the learning never ends. I find that you can discover a new side of yourself in each style of dance that you train in. So it is difficult for me to answer which is my favorite style of dance because it really depends on the person that I am at that stage in my life and what am I seeking for and what is this dance style offering me. So my favorite style sort of changes from age to age. If I had to just pick I would say there are two that stand out at the top: contemporary, because it has so much freedom in the way that you can move, and it's a very direct connection between your feeling and your body. And my second style would be Lavani, because it is so deeply rooted in the Maharashtrian culture, and it really just awakens a very nostalgic part in my life, which I otherwise don't get to experience in other styles of dance. So those two stand out. But otherwise, I would say every style of dance has offered me something, and it's really special to me that I am gifted with the gift of dance.
That's really lovely to hear. And like, yeah, I fully get that, right? That like your favorite would change as you go through different phases in life and different ages. Because like obviously you wanted to learn the dance form, so you must have a passion for it to learn it in the first place. And then yeah, there's like different things that you go through in life that make you like one more than the other at certain times. So I know that times are changing in India, but I can imagine that when you were growing up, and also like you mentioned before, dance was never really looked at as being a full-time career. I think now it's changing a bit with, you know, the whole Bollywood's becoming more and more famous and choreographers are becoming more famous. But when you were growing up, how did the way that the dance industry was in India either hinder or help your progress?
There really wasn't a big dance industry in India. If you wanted to become a dancer, the only option was you can get into acting, and then you can act and dance at the same time, or you can become a part of a dance troupe. So at the time, Shamak Davar was like a big dance troupe. And even the option then was, okay, you can become a background dancer. And nothing wrong in being a background dancer, but I always questioned myself too, why would I limit myself to just that? Like as dancers, we develop so many different skills, and why is there no platform for it? The biggest issue that I had, because dance was such a specific industry and it didn't have so much access, money was a big issue. So it was limited to people that had money. And I did not grow up with a lot of money. My parents definitely did not have money to fund a hobby class. And they had, from the age of 8, told me that if you want to dance, this has to be your career. We don't have money to fund this as your hobby. So from a very young age, I knew that so I had to make something out of myself. In fact, we would go to dance competition after dance competition in every little lane of Mumbai, Maharashtra. I would travel by myself alone with dance groups so I can make some 20, 50 rupees, which is not even a dollar, but that would help me towards my dance classes. That would fund. So that was the biggest issue that I had, was money. I think the second big issue that I was having at the time was society. Because I was a young woman that was dancing, there was a lot of, oh, you're not going to make it through. You're just wasting your time. You're never going to amount to something important in your life. And then as a young girl, when you're trying to find yourself and find who you are, having all of this negativity just thrown at you, you somehow have to carve your way out of it. And the third and the most difficult issue that I had, which not many people talk about when they talk about dance, is what it does to your body. Because when you grow up as a commercial dancer at a young age, everybody's eyes are on you, and they're constantly telling you, you need to be this shape of a dancer. You are too fat, you are too thin, and you're already starting to understand your body, and now your perceptions start changing with what other people are telling you. So I started developing this very disconnect with my body and body dysmorphia because of this. And also your boundaries, because don't really have boundaries as a child, get violated very, very easily. And that at the time impacted me in many different ways. And I'm very lucky that I had dance as a space to explore that emotion. But that part of my upbringing and dance training and what harm it did, I only realize the extent of it now as I am studying femme empowerment and what happens to the body, what the boundaries are. So those were like the biggest issues that I had growing up as a dancer, but I would say that my mother and a few dance teachers that I have met along the way were such strong forces in my life that kept pushing me and telling me that I could create anything that I put my mind to, and I just kept going in spite of anything that was happening. It almost became a challenge for me. It's like, okay, this is happening. Let me figure it out. Let me see how I can get to the next stage. Let me see how I can get to the next stage. So yes, there was a lot of difficulty, but that difficulty has built character and resilience that otherwise wouldn't have been built.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things you said, like I know a lot of dancers as well because I, grew up doing Bollywood and Bharatanatyam, and all of those points you mentioned, like I've kind of thought all of those things at some point when I used to learn dance, like the thing about, having to fit a certain shape, like especially when you're in a dance group, if you're the one that looks different in any way, you're compared to everyone else in the group. And then the thing about cost, like when I learned Bharatanatyam, it was so expensive, and the costumes were like, and this is more than 10 years ago, so its price would have even gone up. The costumes were like 300 plus New Zealand dollars for one costume, and when you're doing Bharatanatyam, you need more than one costume. Like,
Yes.
it was like a real investment. Yes. And also to do an Arangetram, which I didn't. And the reason I didn't was because I did not want my parents spending all of that money on just a 2-hour show. So I basically did the equivalent of an Arangetram, but as an exam in front of my dance teacher and my class. And I looked at the cost of the Arangetram and I just said to my parents, oh no, don't worry about it. I don't see the value in it because I'm not going to be a dance teacher in the future. That was my answer to them when I was like 20. And that's, because you're thinking, oh, you've got to spend $10,000+ on this, and what's it actually going to do with my future? If you're going to become a dance teacher, oh, definitely go for it. But if you're not, then you kind of think about it twice. Yeah, definitely not cheap.
Parita, just one second. Just one second.
Yeah.
Sorry, I told them that's babies and everything. They got it. They got it.
Good. No worries. So how was your experience on Dance India Dance? I know that you were on it as a contestant quite a few years ago.
A lot of people know me actually from Dance India Dance, but I have been on TV since I was 8 years old. And I kind of made my way up from a lot of different reality shows, making my way eventually to Dance India Dance. And it was an interesting piece because I was already working on set for a different season of Dance India Dance when I auditioned for my own. And I was not going to audition because a part of me was like, well, I'm already working on sets. I am making money doing this. I am at a good place in life. Why would I give all of this up to then become a contestant, not get paid for 6 months and put myself through this entire ordeal? And I had the conversation with this pros and cons with people close to me. And they told me, this is going to be a one-time opportunity where people get to see your face, because all of these choreographies go up and people don't even know you did it, that you're the person that is behind them. So this is your opportunity to put yourself out there. And they were right. And that really changed my life in a lot of different ways, getting that platform. I would say my experience on Dance India Dance was, there were plus and minuses, like any experience. The plus was definitely, it's the most that I have grown as a dancer and choreographer, because you are in a competitive space. You want to be one of the best and you have to put in a lot. You are learning 4 to 5 choreographies in a span of 6 days. You're barely sleeping, you're dancing 14 to 15 hours. So you grow exponentially. I think what I didn't like about that experience is that, as all reality shows are, parts of it can be very toxic and scripted. And there are things that you need to do and are expected to do because you're a part of that show. And I didn't really appreciate that. And that's also one of the reasons that eventually pushed me to move to New York, because I kept seeing that this industry was in a lot of ways toxic for women, especially, and for you to succeed and have your place as a woman in that world, you had to give up everything. So you have to give up your friends, your family, like you are on that set all the time, and that becomes your friend and family, and there really isn't a world outside of that. And that's okay for some people. It just was not okay for me. I knew that world is a really big space, and I wanted to explore what I can do outside of that mold that I was in. So that part of DID I felt was restrictive. Also, by the time I got to my little masters, when I became a skipper, I was in charge of these kids. And I was seeing that they were also going through the same ordeal that I was put through as a 20-year-old. And that just didn't sit right with me. I'm like, I could not be in this position that I'm making these kids dance and face their fears in a very negative way. And then I am responsible to go and tell them that, hey, you can't go to the next stage, not because you're not talented, but because you're not cute enough for TV. I didn't want to be the person to do that, somebody that was making them feel that they were not enough. So I knew that that space was just not for me. Having said that, it means that I still explore till date, and I would always be grateful for that. Any experience will always have its positives and negatives, and I feel like you take what works for you and you learn for what doesn't. So that's what that experience was for me.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, all reality shows have a toxic environment, right? Like I mean, this is different, but you look at dating reality shows and they don't care who the person ends up with. They just care if they're getting enough viewers, right? Like
Exactly.
At the end of the day, it's all about TV. It's not actually about the contestants, even though they're the ones that are in it. Yeah. Your dance workshops have taken you all over the world. Like at the moment, you're touring as well. How do you manage emotionally traveling so much for work and being away from your loved ones and your routine and everything that you're familiar with?
I actually like being away from my routine. I'll tell you that, because I am somebody that has a load of creative energy. And if I'm in one place for a long period of time, in some ways it stifles my creative energy. So I do like to travel, and I do like to meet new people and connect with women across the world who are also doing incredible work. It's a very inspiring space for me as an artist. When you stop yourself from traveling somewhere, your creativity hinders. You're only able to think about that moment, that space, and I never want that to be an issue for me. So I do enjoy the traveling part of it. The staying away from the loved ones is hard. I have now been away from my partner for most of our anniversaries and my birthday and special events, and it's hard on those days that you really miss that bond and that connection and that person. But at the same time, I do believe that when you are in a long-term relationship, it is important for each person to have their space and grow individually. And if you're not growing individually, it's hard for you to help each other grow. So by us spending this time apart, we give each other that space to, okay, well, you can work on your dream, I'm going to work on my dream, and we're going to find a way to connect. And yeah, it is hard, but sometimes from hardship, you grow, right? Like a lotus cannot exist without muddy waters. So you have to go through it. So as hard as it is, I keep pushing myself, knowing that something beautiful is going to come out of this experience for me and for my partner.
I love that. And it's so true, right? Like, I feel like if you both let each other be who you are, then you'll flourish together as well. Like, I find that with my husband and I as well. We're very different people as well. And, like, we both let each other do what we're passionate about in life. And then if you're happy, then you'll have a happier relationship as well at the end of it.
Yeah.
So on to like what you studied alongside being a dancer when you were growing up. You studied psychology at university, and obviously you grew up in India where mental health is not always what's the word? Not always accepted or, given much importance. So how was what you were studying perceived by your family and society when you decided that's what you wanted to study at university?
As a young dancer, I think I stopped giving two shits about the society a long time back. I did not care what the society said, even what my extended family said, in some case, even what my parents said. I was always very responsible of doing what I had to do. And because I was such an independent child from a very young age, my mom was like, you can make whatever choices you want as long as you know that you have to pay for the consequences, good or bad, you have to deal with them. So that was my focus and my goal and my philosophy of life always. In terms of psychology, it came to me very naturally because I was studying dance and I was teaching dance from a young age. I often landed up working in spaces where I was working with mental or physically disabled individuals, even kids of parents who have been infected by AIDS, a lot of spaces that people didn't want me to teach. And I would go to these classes and be very interested in what dance was doing for them, how their eyes and faces would light up when the music would come on, that was very interesting to me. I'm like, why is this happening? Why are these people moving, but something more is changing in them apart from the movement? And at the same time, like I've already spoken about all the negativity that I was facing with the people around me. And it made me become more interested in people and behaviors and how those behaviors represent themselves into relationships. So psychology was a natural form of study for me because I was so interested in people and the brain and the way the brain functions. And eventually I wanted to become a neuroscientist. So I was like, okay, psychology is a good way to go into it. What I found fascinating was in India, psychology is not a science degree. It's an arts degree. So you get a Bachelor of Arts in psychology. And it's like, it is the science of the brain, though. Like, why is it not in? Because when I moved to the US and I got my dance therapy, that was a master's in science. So those aspects were always there from like the society in every way. People would tell you that this is not an important field. I remember seeing my doctor at some point and bringing up psychosomatic disorders as a point of discussion, and he just completely, shut me off on that discussion like I was talking something frivolous. So there was always that impression of this is not an important field of study, but it didn't matter what other people thought because I knew it was important and it was important to me. So it didn't matter if it was important to others or not. As long as it was important to me, I would go for it anyway. So that's how I landed up in psychology and studying psychology.
Yeah, and the thing you mentioned about it being a Bachelor of Arts in India, even in New Zealand, when I was at uni, like over 10 years ago now, I did a minor in psychology. But even when I was at uni, you could either do it under a Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Arts, but it was effectively the same degree. And I never understood why it came under two different degrees. I was like, if you do it under arts, is it because you want it to look easier? I'm not sure. Because you know how science is perceived as being much harder than the arts.
Right.
Maybe it's changed now. This was more than 10 years ago, but I always thought that was a bit odd as well. So I want to know, in your experience, how is mental health perceived in India now or in recent years? And do many people seek therapy if they need it? And also, is that stigma around mental health issues, is that stigma going down, or is it still just as bad as it was 10, 15 years ago?
In terms of the stigma on mental health in India and across the world, really, I feel like the stigma still continues, and maybe the stigma was used to be in your face first, and it's not anymore. But it definitely is an underlying thing. So most people initially would think that, okay, I need to be crazy to be in therapy, and now that perception is changing. Now it's more like, what is therapy really going to do for me? Because I've had these conversations with a lot of people from the older generation, including people in my family, because I am in therapy. So I have, encouraged them to take up therapy. And the concept is, what is therapy going to do for me? I'm just going to go and vent in front of another person. How is that going to be helpful? So now there's at least an opening of the door of like, okay, maybe therapy is necessary, but not necessary enough. How does that work? I think the awareness of that is not in place. Also, there is now this understanding of like, when you're in therapy, you really are the person that is doing the hard work. It's not like medicine. It's not like you can pop a pill and the pain is going to go away. You have to go through the hard work, the journey to get to the other side. And a lot of people are not ready for that. A lot of people don't want to put themselves through that journey. And that is very evident in people's resistance towards therapy. It has changed over a period of time, but definitely not changing fast enough. The moment you hear the words therapy and healing, there's instantly this sense of, oh, do I need to be a part of this? Should I be doing this? I don't know what is going to come up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to deal with what is going to come up. And that's, you know, a legitimate fear. You really don't know, but it's also one of those things that you don't know till you try. You're never going to know. So are you comfortable never knowing, or do you want to put yourself through that just so that you can find out who you really are and what your strengths are? That depends from person to person. That awareness is changing, but it's changing slowly.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think also in that older generation, like our parents' generation and above, they tend to be in denial that there's anything, and this is with quote marks, that there's anything wrong with them. And especially if it's a younger person, like someone like me, telling an elder in my family, you know, their first response is, there's nothing wrong with me. Who are you to tell me that I need to see a counselor or a therapist? So they do two things with that. They make you feel bad for trying to ask them to get help. And then they're also in denial that maybe they do need help. And then they turn around and say it's too expensive. So it's all three things, because I'm not sure about India and America, but in New Zealand, there's like more than a 1-year waiting list to see a mental health practitioner. So whether that's a counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist, and even when you do get to see them, a lot of people can't afford it because it's not always covered by the government, because it's a case-by-case basis. So if the health system doesn't think that your case is severe enough, you have to pay for it out of your own pocket. And it can easily be $100 per hour to see a counselor or to see a psychiatrist. I've heard it can get up to $500 an hour. And, who has that type of money, right? So, yeah, it's really hard.
You see that in the US as well. And unless you have health insurance, it's very difficult to see a therapist. And even within health insurance, not all sorts of therapies are covered. They can get up to $250 and for 40 minutes, which is really expensive, and it's not accessible to everybody. And coming to your point of talking to the older generation about their need of therapy and their unacceptance of there's anything wrong with them, I recently had this conversation with somebody in my family.
I think your audio is cutting out.
Explain to them how their Oh, it says the internet is unstable. Can you hear me now?
Yep, now I can.
I was having this conversation with an older member in my family recently, and I was trying to explain to them how therapy works. And I kept telling them, I'm like, you can't just be angry. You need to process your anger. And it's very hard for them to understand what that means, what the term processing your emotion means. And it's not entirely their fault, because they were never taught that. They were never taught what it meant to recognize your emotions, become aware of them, because they didn't really have space to do it, right? So if you think about the generation older to us, especially the ones growing in a country like India, a lot of their basic needs were not met. So because their attention was taken away by that, there really wasn't the space to think about, oh, this is how I'm feeling, and this is what I can do with that feeling. In some ways, our generation and the generations coming after us are privileged, because a lot of our basic needs are met and we are able to have that space. So I do empathize with why the generation above us is hesitant on therapy, because they just view the world in a very different lens. And I don't think it's changing anytime sooner. So my recommendation is always don't change what you can change, because it's only going to affect you. What you can do is change yourself, and that's all you can focus on. So that's what I try to do when it comes to therapy. I can't change somebody else's perception, but I can evolve my own.
Yep, that's very true. So that brings me on to Bolly Heels. How and why did you start Bolly Heels, and what's your vision for the future for Bolly Heels?
Bolly Heels, the way it started was actually on accident. I moved to New York right out of India. And when I moved, I didn't know it was just, I don't know why, because I'm not really moving. I think it's just the internet going in and out. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Now it's all good.
So when I moved to New York, I was in my early 20s. I had never been to America before, never lived alone by myself. So I was just thrown into this other side of the world. And I thought I was going to do really well because I went to an English speaking school. I watched a lot of American TV. Friends was one of my favorite shows. And I was like, I'm to fit right in. And then I went to New York and realized that I was nowhere close to fitting into that culture. I felt very out of place. And the reason I left India, because I felt out of place there as well. So it started this sort of questioning of, where do I belong? What is my title? What is the box that I fit in? And while questioning that, I realized that I didn't have to fit in any box. And often we find ourselves trying to fit in a box. Oh, I'm an extrovert, whatever that box is, right? But we have the capacity to be whoever we want to be whenever. And that sort of feeling is what motivated me to start these dance classes, because I wanted to create a space for myself to feel that over and over again, and for anybody else to have that space. So I started with Bollywood and heels. So the way I selected those two styles was Bollywood. If you've watched Bollywood movies, you know that it's such a creative space, right? Anything can happen in a Bollywood movie. There really isn't any limit. And when you talk about heels technique, it's a very assertive form of technique. You need to carry your body a certain way to be able to perform dance in heels. And it teaches you how to have command over your body and over your space. So by combining something that was so assertive with something that was so creative, I was creating tools for myself and for other people to be like, hey, you can be confident in your skin, in your body, and at the same time be creative to who you want to be and what you want to make out of this space. So that's how these classes started. There was specifically Bollywood on heels classes. In fact, when I was teaching, Bolly Heels was not even existent. I was the first brown woman to teach a Bolly Heels class and take it international. And that's how I landed up coming to Australia and New Zealand for the first time in 2018, I believe, to teach these Bolly Heels classes. What I noticed was, because I was trying to create this space that was welcoming and empowering for everybody, I organically started fusing some of my dance movement therapy techniques into that space, because I realized that by me just standing in the beginning of class and giving a speech about how I want everybody to be welcomed wasn't enough, that I needed to show them that with my energy, with my body, with techniques, with movement interventions, I needed to create that space for them. And after every single workshop that I had in Australia and New Zealand, people had a very overwhelming response to that class. And they gave me this feedback of sort of, what you're doing is completely unique. They've never been to a class like this. This was very different than anything they've ever experienced before. And that made me question, what am I doing? That's so different. And that's when I realized that all of that credit went into my training in dance movement therapy. So Bolly Heels, as the company is today, came out of this sort of reaction that I got from people down here. And I started isolating, okay, well, what are the techniques in dance therapy that are working? How can I fuse them with different styles of dance to create that space? How does this space look different if it was contemporary versus it was a Bollywood class? It was a 1 hour class versus a 5 hour class, and started sort of expanding the range of that movement and that vision. And through Bolly Heals, I want to create a space for therapeutic movement to become more accessible, especially in a culture where dance is becoming so choreography focused. I get so many people that message me saying, hey, what is the choreography that you're teaching? Can I see a glimpse of it? And it's interesting to me when people ask me that question, because when I was growing up, we didn't learn choreography for days. All of our time went in drilling that technique, drilling that discipline, and it is really in that hard work, in that resilience, where you learn who you are as a dancer, and it does so much more for you. And isn't that why arts are present, so that you can find a way to express and become a better human being? That's what dance is for me, has always been for me. So through Bolly Heals, I want to continue instilling that discipline in people and helping them realize that dance is so much more than choreography. It has the potential to change your life, and I want to create a space where you can experience that.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's so true that, it's an art form. And yeah, when we learn all these structured type of dances, it takes away that creativity and spontaneity from it, because it becomes a routine. Yeah, and also, yeah, I noticed the name of your dance company as well when I was looking on Instagram, and I was like, oh, I love what you've done with the name here. It was, yeah, really good. A good mashup of two different types of dance. What's the difference between therapeutic dance and dance therapy?
I love that question. I love explaining the difference between therapeutic dance and dance movement therapy, because it's very, very essential in today's world, because a lot of people tend to use this term dance therapy without really understanding what dance therapy is. So when we talk about therapeutic dance, it's naturally feeling the benefits of moving your body. When you move your body, you're gonna feel different, because you're naturally going to release some energy, and you're going to create space for more energy to come in. And that experience for you is going to be therapeutic in its own way. And that is what therapeutic dance is. Some very intentional teachers can add more meaning to that process. But when we talk about dance therapy, that is a science of understanding what are the different emotions that people are presenting in the room. What is the goal that you have for these people, for these emotions? And now how are you going to help all these people in front of you get from one place of emotional state to the other place of emotional state using movement as a tool? It's a very involved relationship between the dance movement therapist and the participant in that session. And the reason I emphasize on this distinction is that when you use the word dance therapy, you are telling people that this is a therapy session. And because of that, people will start opening up naturally a lot of doors. And if you, as a movement practitioner, don't have the skills to close those doors for them, then you are going to leave these people in a very difficult position. And that is not fair to them or to you. And that's essentially why I emphasize on therapeutic dance being different than dance movement therapy. Both of them have their place, and people who are practicing them should be specific about noting what they're offering to their clients, so they don't land up promising more than what they're capable of doing.
It's interesting. Yeah, I never really realized the difference between the two terms either until you just explained it now. And that leads me on to my next question, because I can imagine, both therapeutic dance and dance therapy lead to a lot of empowerment and people feeling like they have control of their feelings and the situation. So what does empowerment through dance look like?
Empowerment through dance is a couple of things. The first thing is the change in your body itself, the feeling, the muscular change in your body, right? You need to know how to strengthen your muscles through various dance techniques. You're going to start doing that, and that is going to make you feel more grounded and present in your body. It's as simple as think about if you were in the house and you were moving apartments and you had to carry your furniture. Just by the act of you being able to carry that furniture from one place to the other, you're going to feel like, oh, I'm strong. I got this. I don't need help. And now that feeling is going to snowball into something else, right? So that's what dance does to you. Firstly, it makes you feel muscularly strong and connected with your body. The second thing is it gives you this sense of control over your emotions. That is the second stage of empowerment, that you need to know that you're not going to just flow away in a certain emotion, that you have the capacity to control how much you want to give into that emotion and how much you want to hold back. The third thing when it comes to empowerment is how much are you comfortable taking up space? And that brings into how aware are you of your space? Are you able to create a sense of harmony between your internal emotions and the space that is around us? And there's specific dance styles that sort of cater to each of these things. So when you talk to ballet, it's a great dance style for building that sort of muscular strength and grounding. When you talk about contemporary, that's an excellent space to find this relationship between the space and your body. When you talk about belly dance or twerk, that's an excellent space to learn how to release trauma from your body, especially sexual trauma, and then make space for being comfortable with sensual movement in your body. Also, when we talk about empowerment, we should talk about the spiritual empowerment of your body. Where are your energy centers? Where are your chakras? And how are these chakras now aligning with each other to making you feel like a whole human being? So empowerment in dance comes through a lot of different stages of movement, but the movement is a very important tool here because your energies are going to get trapped in your body, and the only way that you can release them and make space for new energies to come in is going to be through movement.
Nice. So you obviously run your own dance academy with Bolly Heels. What challenges and also what's the word I'm looking for? What achievements have you had with running your own dance academy?
I think running my own dance academy, the biggest achievement that I've had is getting people to understand and believe in the concept of Bolly Heels, because the concept itself is so niche, and combining Bollywood dance with dance movement therapy, there really isn't anybody that I know of around the globe that's doing that. So getting multiple people across the globe to believe in my vision and become a part of that journey is one of the biggest accomplishments that I consider for my company. The fact that I get to travel the world and introduce this concept to so many different people and bring them on that journey. The second big accomplishment that I would say is how many lives Bolly Heels has changed. I have students that I have been in contact with for the entirety of the existence of Bolly Heels, and I have seen them not only evolve as dancers, but human beings, affecting their confidence in every area of their lives so positively. And when it comes to owning an art form, owning a dance school, Parita can speak to that as well, that the change that you bring in other people's lives, the positive impact that you have, the community, the sense of family that you provide them, the confidence that they start developing in themselves, in their bodies, is the biggest achievement that I can feel proud of with my dance company. When it comes to challenges, I would say something that nobody talks about is, when you're running a dance company, you are dancing very little. And you start this dance company because you love to dance, and that part of it now somehow takes a back seat because you have to run so many different things, and it requires a very specific skill set. Now you are a CEO, you are running a company, and there's so many different aspects of business that you need to learn and make mistakes to grow from. Nobody teaches you how to run a business unless you're in a business school. I wasn't in a business school. So it's things that you just have to figure out on your own. And because dance schools are not like a tech job, they don't fetch you a lot of money. So you're really doing this out of passion, and you have to wake up every single day and find ways to motivate yourself to show up for your students, show up for your team, for your cause, for your dream, knowing that it's probably not going to get you time to dance for yourself, not going to get you as much money as that maybe your peers or your colleagues are making. It is going to have no boundaries for you because you're going to be thinking about this 24/7. You're gonna have to make sacrifices for your body, from your family. You're gonna have time away, and yet you have to wake up and put in your all every single day. So that definitely is challenging, and we all continue to do it, but it doesn't take away from how challenging that experience can be and continues to be.
It's good that you mention all those challenges because, just like you said, not everyone sees those challenges because it's all behind the surface, right? And when you're posting all this stuff on social media about where you're performing and, people see how many followers you have, sometimes they might just think, oh, your life is all happy and great, right? They don't actually see the struggle you go to get to that point because you don't always publicly talk about it. So it's really good that you mentioned that stuff. So, people are aware.
Even if you just talk about this tour in itself is, I'm landing up taking close to 14 to 15 flights in a span of 6 weeks, moving through 7 or 8 different time zones, consistently dancing and teaching 20 plus workshops, coordinating with multiple hosts. Like, it's a lot of work. For the last 2 days, I've had the flu. Like, I was bundled up before this interview, and I'm still sitting in sweaters in this beautiful Melbourne weather right now because of my flu. So, sometimes these parts of people look at my social media and they're like, oh my God, you get to live your dream and you get to travel the world and you get to dance. And I'm like, yeah, I do get to do all of those things, but I pay a price for living that dream. And I don't regret paying the price, but you can't, I say this, that your body has the capacity to be grateful and exhausted at the same time. You don't have to be one or the other. You don't have to be overtly grateful for the gift you have or given to the overt burnout that you're going to feel. You can feel both those emotions at the same time, and it's important to acknowledge it and allow yourself to feel both, because it's not this beautiful flowery space every day. Even a rose has thorns. So it's important to know that.
Yes, so true. So you mentioned this before, that you do goddess synergy. So what exactly is it, and what's your goal with where you want to take it in the future?
I am very, very excited about Goddess Synergy. Oh my God, it has the power to change the world, I tell you. So Goddess Synergy is stringing together a lot of different types of disciplines of empowerment. So it's fusing together body sciences, movement disciplines, psychology, performance, spirituality. It's really taking the best of each of these fields and stringing it in one concise and comprehensive workshop to teach women how they can be confident in any area of their life. And this comes from the core understanding that confidence is a state of mind, and you can channel it into will anytime you want. It's not something that we are born with. It's not relevant to how you look, what amount of money you have. Everybody has the capacity to become confident. And especially when it comes to women, we are consistently told from a very young age, this is how you need to act. This is what you need to wear. This is what you need to be. We were never taught to take up space. And what that does for women is it takes away our power to choose who we want to be. And we see that impact in the world today. How many positions of power have women in them. Even today in the so-called developed countries, we're still talking about, oh, there's reproductive issues and nobody has, like, people that are deciding, making choices about women's body are mostly men. Even when people will post sexy dance videos, there's a string of negative comments that is followed by them. And there's all of these perceptions of, oh, good girls are not sexy. And you can either be beautiful or you can be smart. You can never be both. So goddess energy is a way to counter all of those things. Is it a dance class? Not really. It's not just a dance class. Are you going to become a better dancer in that process? 100%, because we are going to go through choreography and freestyle and improv techniques to help you understand what are the specific techniques that are needed for you to be a confident person. So through the Goddess Energy workshops, I will challenge my participants on a physical, emotional, and a spiritual level for them to understand what is holding them back, and then empower them with very specific movement tools that not only can they practice in that specific session, but it's something that they can take on with them to feel that power and confidence whenever they want it, whenever they crave it, which is eventually going to snowball into other aspects of their life. Whether it is, oh, I want to become a confident dancer and not forget my steps and dance in front of the camera. If that's your goal, you're going to achieve it. If your goal is, I want to be a more open person and become an extrovert and meet new people, you're going to get to that. If your goal is, I want to start taking up charge at work, you're going to get to that, because the basis of all of these things is your belief in yourself. And women inherently don't believe in themselves. They're never thought to believe in themselves. They're always thought to depend on other people around them. Through Goddess Synergy, I want to show women that you don't have to. You have this natural power that you are gifted with. And through this movement, I want to help women find ways to their power.
I love that. That's really cool. And it's so true that it's always men that dictate how women should be. Like, especially in America, you look at the politics in America and it blows my mind. It's unbelievable. And so I feel like, wherever women can feel empowered or wherever they're encouraged to, like, 100% go for it. So how
it's interesting. Sorry, I just wanted to mention, even outside of the politics, if you look at just the plain statistics, 77% of all women go through some sort of sexual misconduct in their body. 77%. How big is that number? 77% of all women, whether it is the worst case scenario like molestation or rape, or it is scenarios that are not to that extent, but if it's an unwanted touch, it is a negative comment that they have received, either way their relationship with their body is getting hampered because of that. And the more of those experiences that they collect throughout their life, the further removed they become from their bodies and the more insecure they become from their bodies. And that is exactly why women don't feel their power, because they're meant to feel powerless over and over again. I'll give you a very simple example of this. Like, how many times have people been told, don't talk about your menstrual cycles because it's disgusting? And I'm like, why though? Every woman, even animals, like the female of a species, is bleeding every single month, and women just get up and go to work and pretend like nothing's happening. So why not talk about it? So in so many different levels, you see that women are meant to feel powerless. They're told consistently, oh, you shouldn't talk about this. You shouldn't talk about your struggles. You shouldn't take up space. You should be there for your family. You should be a good mother. You should be this. You should be that. Hello, cut us some slack. Give us some space. Give us some space to decide who we want to be. Why shouldn't we? We are all gifted with just this one life, and we should have the choice to decide what we want to do with that life.
Yep, that's so true. And like, even at work, you're like told that if you have to go to the bathroom with the pad, to like put the pad in your pocket. You don't want anyone, just little things like that. You don't want anyone to see it. Like,
exactly.
So true, so true. I could go on about that point, but yeah. So how are your workshops accessible to people, and do you make them open to anyone to join?
All my workshops are accessible to anybody that wants to train as a dancer. The way I teach my workshops is I will have a specific goal for each of my workshops, and I will share that goal with the students. And that goal will depend on who are the students that are coming to that class. So I will always communicate with my host, or if I'm organizing the workshops myself, I will look into my students and I'll get a sort of idea of, okay, this is their level of dancing. If I don't have that idea, I'll ask them when I go to class, how many of you are new to dance? How many of you are veterans at dance? And based on that, we will come up with a collective goal that we want to achieve. And when I teach the choreography, I teach the choreography and the dance techniques relevant to that choreography that are surrounding that goal. So you have this sense of accomplishment every time you come to my workshop. You are not coming there just to learn a choreography, but you are coming there to learn an aspect of movement and how that strengthens you as a dancer, as a human being, your body. And that's how I make my workshops accessible to everybody. I want my students to be seen. So when you're in class with me, you will notice that very rarely will you see me just standing in one place teaching. I am always jumping all over the place. I'm moving about the room. I'm talking to my students. I'm getting to know them. I want every member in that room to be seen. When people come into my workshop, they are coming to learn, not just the dance, but learn about themselves, about what their capacity is. And I'm very cognizant of that going into the class. I don't want anybody to come to this class and feel like their time or money or energy was wasted. They've put in this trust in me as a teacher, and I take that very, very seriously when I go to my workshops.
Nice. So obviously we are living in the world where social media plays a huge part in almost everyone's lives. So how is social media changing the landscape of dancers and choreographers, and how do you stand out in the crowd when there's so many influencers and dancers on social media?
Social media, oh my God, I can talk about this all day. But social media, it has a positive and a negative impact, right? Positive is it's given a platform to anybody and everybody, and that's a beautiful thing. Like I mentioned, when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot to look up to. And now knowing that there are so many people in the world that can create their dreams and make them happen with the power of social media, because they can market themselves, they can connect, they can reach out to different people. It's a big deal. So I think that's a very positive thing about social media. I think the negative about that is because social media is such it's an entertainment source, right? It's an attention grabbing machine. So all of the dance that is coming out of that is completely entertainment based. That is what people are trying to do with it. And they are sort of moving away from what dance can offer them, which is so much more than just that entertaining choreography. So I feel like the way that you can stand out, irrespective of where social media is just be true to your cause. Because at the end of the day, whether there's social media or not, you're going to have to face yourself in the mirror. You're going to have to wake up in your body and be happy about what you're doing. And as long as you're happy doing what you're doing, you're going to stand out. Maybe it's not even going to matter if you stand out or not, because you're going to be satisfied with your work. And that's what my goal is, and that's how I perceive it. I use social media as a tool to help my business, but when it comes to standing out, I stay true to my niche and my message and the things that I want to do with my life. Because at the end of the day, social media to me is just a platform. It's one of many platforms, and life is so much more than that. So I try to focus on just everything that life has to offer me and not invest so much of my energy in just social media. That's one aspect of my life. It's not all of me.
Yeah, and I like the point you made about, people doing things for social media that's not their authentic self, because that's what social media becomes after a time, right? When you're the person scrolling and all you see is like, you see the best of people, you don't see everything, you don't see the stuff behind it. It loses that authenticity, and then it gives the person that's looking at the Instagram stories like a altered view of reality, because it's not reality. It's only like 5% of your actual reality.
Exactly.
So I like the fact that you're saying, you like to stay authentic and you use it as a tool to show who you are, rather than changing yourself for your followers or changing yourself to get more followers. Because there's, I think, not many people like that anymore. When you look at all these influencers, you just kind of think, you're just recording your entire, like, sometimes I wonder, some influencers, I feel like asking them, are you recording your entire life? Like, obviously I would never ask them, but like, you kind of look at the videos and I kind of think like, wow, if I did that, I don't know how people in my family and friends would react if I'm just constantly videoing everything I do in my life. But that's another point.
I agree with that. And what happens is, like, when you are consuming your phone, you are so removed from that moment. And that is where a lot of people's anxiety comes from. Like, that's what we learn in meditation or spirituality, right? Like, the key to living a happy life is being in the moment and taking in that moment as is. And when you are introducing another piece in that moment, now you're almost starting to curate that moment, and that moment has lost its essence. And that part of social media really bothers me. And sometimes, as somebody that has to spend so much time on social media for my business, I really do run out of ideas, because I'm in the house, I'm like, do people really need to know what I'm eating every single day? Does it make any difference to anybody's life whether I had a carrot today or a salmon the other day? You know what I mean? Like, it's a very interesting dynamic in the world that we live in right now. And in fact, I've heard this from so many people, that if you ask young kids of who they want to be, their answer is, I want to be an influencer and I want to be famous, because they feel like it is such an easy way out of, like, an easy way to make money and gain recognition. And it's really going back to the idea that everybody wants to be seen, right? That's where most of our issues come from, that we want to be seen. And initially it was, I want to be seen by my family and, the people in my life that provide me love. And now this is just expanding to, I want to be seen by everybody. But what that does is, when you're craving so much attention from everybody else, you're forgetting to give yourself that attention, and you're not solving the core puzzle of being seen, because you're not seen by yourself. You're seen by everybody else, but you yourself are not seeing it. So the core of the problem only becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's finding a solution in the absolute wrong direction. But that's just my 2 cents. Not everybody agrees with it, and that's okay.
Yep. No, I definitely agree. That's pretty much my thoughts on that as well. So we're coming to the end of the interview now, but I want to know, like, and this is probably a hard one for you to answer, but what's the best part of your job, or the most favorite thing you look forward to?
I think the favorite thing I look forward to is the reaction people have when they notice how powerful their bodies are. Going into a space and helping people find their power really brings me so much joy, because in my life, I've had many moments where I've felt utterly powerless, and that feeling has been devastating. And I have had to find that power myself and carve that path for myself. So the fact that I can share that knowledge and that skill set with somebody else, help them recognize their power, and you see a shift. You see a shift in their face, in their body, the way they dress, the way they interact. And it is so beautiful to watch, knowing that you are making this world a better place by helping people realize that they really are powerful, interesting, joyous beings of nature, and they have the capacity to live that truth. And you get to be a small part of their journey in helping them finding that in their body. I think that is my best part, the best part of my job, that day in and day out, I get to do that. So on the days when I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, do you have to teach 10 workshops today? I remind myself that through those 10 workshops, I might be changing 10 lives, and that is enough.
Yep, nice. And what do you hope to achieve in the future with Bolly Heels and just all your other endeavors?
I have been on this path always, even as a little girl, when I didn't know I was on this path, I was somehow on this path, understanding that your body is a very powerful tool of communication. Even when you are in the womb of your mother, the way you communicate with your mom is by moving your limbs, is by kicking and moving your body. And it's a very integral form of being a human being, is movement. And through all the work that I do, my goal is to introduce people to various forms of movement and the strength that body and movement in the body can bring to people's lives. And my philosophy of life is that the sun is moving, the river is moving, the clouds are moving, everything around you is in motion. What is stopping you? So that's what I want to achieve with my work. I want to connect people to movement, to their natural powers of being, and to help them realize what it means to be a human being. And what that means is that you are an unstoppable force of nature, and you must know that. And the only way you can feel that is through movement.
Oh, that's really beautiful. And such a nice note to end the interview on. Parita, do you have anything to ask Swara before we wrap up?
No, I couldn't have thought of any other way to say how, with the question that you asked about the challenges and achievements when you run a dance school, and I like totally hear you go, like it is like it's just like all our stories are so similar in the way that we do it out of the passion for it. So yeah, I think Sora's just put it in the perfect manner.
Nice. It was so nice speaking to you, Swara, and I know how busy you are with your tour and all your workshops, and also you're in a different time zone to us at the moment because you're in Australia. So thank you so much for making the time to chat to us, and also while you're sick. A lot of people I know would postpone an interview because they're sick, but you didn't. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you in a few weeks. Thank you so much.
Yes, well, thank you so much for giving me this platform, and Parita for pulling all of this together. I have so much respect for people that run a dance company and that empower people through movement. So thank you again for putting all of this together. Thank you, Parita, for doing the wonderful work that you're doing, connecting with other people of color and noticing how they are living their lives and really giving voice to us so that other people of color around the world can look up and know that there is a path for them. And it's important that sort of representation is important, and strong women support other strong women. So I am happy to be in the presence, virtual that may be, of other strong women from around the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, hope to see you all at the workshop next week. Not next week, in 2 weeks.
Yes, see you in Wellington, New Zealand. I'm very excited.
Hopefully the weather stays up for you.
Yes.
It will.
Cool.